yeah, the Marvels might be but it's not because they're women on the screen. Because ain't nobody say nothing about Wanda, bruh.
Invincible is everything the modern MCU isn't. After an incredibly strong season 1 that set the ball rolling,
now, I haven't watched Invincible. Somebody send me their Amazon login. I need those.
the new season hasn't been putting any punches either. Its bold and fresh take on the genre, along with its incredible writing and twists, have made it an instant classic. When you compare it to what the MCU has been pumping out recently, the difference in quality is clear. Flop after flop after flop has proven they just can't learn their lesson.
Okay, flop after flop, but showing the Marvels 2 times back to back. Hey man, look like some bias work right here, but we gonna keep watching.
And if it keeps on carrying like this, Invincible is going to destroy the MCU. Watching DC and Marvel films alone would make you think that the superhero genre is on its last legs. The same stories over and over again with awful characters and even worse writing is getting to even the most hardcore of Marvel fans by now. So what's Invincible done differently? On the surface, Invincible might look like any other superhero property. Tons of the characters are clearly borrowed versions of other famous heroes. Omni-Man is clearly inspired by Superman. Darkwing is a counterpart to Batman. Monster Girl and her transformation power is obviously drawing from the Hulk. Along with the characters, the world is clearly drawing from superhero tropes as well. Cecil and the Global Defense Agency fill in for the shadowy government agency putting the strings from behind the scenes. All the heroes have their own secret identities as well. If you can name a superhero trope, it's probably in there. The difference comes with what Invincible and its writers have actually done with these archetypes and characters. All the ingredients for a lighthearted fun
Didn't Omni-Man like kill all of them? Listen, I done seen the memes, bro.
comic book show are there, and the first episode makes you think that's all it's going to be, with this cheerful version of the Justice League facing off against two cartoonishly simple and outmatched villains. That is until its infamous ending. Mixed R-rated violence and colourful comic book superheroes isn't completely unique, but the execution is incredible. The final scene from episode 1 is a masterclass in how to shock the audience and give way to what's happening. The music is also
Alright, like Superman had a kid, but Superman tweaked out and tried to take over the world, and his son got to step up to stop him. That's what it's about. Hey man, might need to get on that Amazon app, I ain't gonna lie.
Particularly impressive, starting out in usual Marvel fashion with an ominous orchestral swell. As the fight continues, it keeps building just as expected. But once Omni-Man makes the first kill, it completely cuts out, leaving the audience alone as the carnage unfolds. It's this scene that illuminates one of Invincible's greatest strengths, and something that's clearly missing from the modern MCU: unpredictability and actual stakes. It shows the audience that nobody's safe. Characters which are in
Bro, but that's the thing, when you start casting for like real world, like it's very hard to switch a plot or add a character, because like people don't like what people don't understand about movies is people care about the actor just as much as they care about the character that they're representing. So if you kill off a character, people kind of like love that actor. But I think that's the strong suit of cartoons or animation is you go get a voice actor, you can put another, you can get people to love the character at any moment. Like you could bring in a new character. Oh my God, 2 episodes in, it's a banger. I love them.
Introduced as the top heroes of the world, get dispatched one by one. While it's obviously
this was his team. Oh, this is crazy.
Animated and cartoonish, the violence is realistic in its speed and its impact. It tells us that anyone could go at any time. Nobody is safe and real. Tangible danger is always around the corner. And the whole show keeps this tension going expertly. An often underrated scene is when Omni-Man goes to see his tailor, Art. Without any overt threats or menace, the point comes through incredibly clearly. Omni-Man simply flicking the top of a beer bottle is all Omni-Man needs to demonstrate the fact that he could end Art's life in a split second. It stands in stark contrast to the post-Endgame MCU, but you already know pretty much everything that's going to happen before the movie even starts. The main characters will be safe at the end. They always win eventually. The fights will be visual spectacle, sure, but they never have the impact that Invincible can accomplish with just a few frames of animation.
I guess maybe a little bit, but Mr. Stark, I don't feel so. I think you have to let people live long enough for people to care about the death, right? It's all good and dandy when a show people die. Boom. It is what it is. But do they really care about the death if they don't know the whole story? That's really what it comes down to,
Animation. They're simply roller coasters. The ride might be fun the first few times, but MCU films always end up right back at the start, ready to make the same twists and turns all over again.
Like Black Widow fighting Hawkeye to go over the cliff to get the Soul Stone. Thanos snapping the gauntlet. He don't got the gauntlet. Tony got him out of here, but he died too. Come on, listen. I feel like it go both ways, kind of.
It's a formula they've been milking for nearly 2 decades, but over that time, the characters like Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America that drew people in have nearly all gone. In their stead is a collection of former side characters who, despite their actors' best efforts, just don't cut it as a main attraction. That, or they use movies to try and force through a political message. Before, when the MCU still packed a punch.
What do you mean force through a political message? All of these, I hate when people say that, because like, if you read the comic book, they were all political messages. What are we talking about?
These were nuanced discussions. The Russo brothers and their 2 Captain America movies had these layers. The Winter Soldier and Civil War was a story about Captain America defeating a shadowy organization and facing his past. Underneath that though, there was a real discussion about government and the middle ground between safety and control. How much freedom do you trade away for that? And how can you trust those in power to know the responsibility that comes with that? These were the questions the movie was posing. Sure, you might be able to trust a perfect person to operate without rules for the good of everyone, but even Captain America wasn't perfect, and the Avengers' authority was in conflict with the actual rules that everyone else lives by. People still disagree about whether Iron Man was right or if Captain America was justified, but as the MCU progressed,
that's what I was going to do next, my bad.
These discussions melted away, replaced by what boardroom executives think the audience wants to see. At first, it was just a few scenes, like the infamous "she's got help" part from the final battle of Endgame.
Don't worry. She's got help.
It was ridiculous in its execution.
Yo, people hate women. They have to. There's no way this made people that bad. Or that bad. This made people that mad. This is
Getting pretty much every single female character to pose for the camera and wow the audience with their presence. This scene became the template for entire movies like the Marvels, which was completely predictably a failure. Instead of just owning their status as a popcorn film, or going deeper and actually trying to start a conversation, these movies rely on something else entirely. A mixture of identity politics, omnipotent strong female characters, and a world that
omnipotent listen, please. What?
Entirely. A mixture of identity politics, omnipotent strong female characters, and a world that changes to accommodate them rather than the other way around.
But if these people are aliens, right? Or they have alien powers, they're not humans. They don't operate under the same umbrella that typical humans have evolved to operate under. It's different. What? Come on now, dog. This is crazy.
The main hero starts out as the most competent, powerful people in their little world. The rest of the movie is just the other characters slowly coming to realize it. Watching Invincible only drives this point deeper, but not for the reason you might expect. When the first season released, barely anyone had anything bad to say.
Okay, so what if Omni-Man had a daughter? Then what? You're telling me the story couldn't be told? He's from outer space. He's an alien, ain't he? And he had the woman he had is like a human, right? Or I don't know. I haven't seen Invincible.
Say about it. That was except for the character of Amber. Mark's girlfriend. Over the course of the show, they constantly drive it in that she's just the best person that's ever existed. Countless times they show her talking about or doing charity work.
Helping build schools. It was one of those group volunteer things.
Meanwhile, Mark is trying to balance his hero life with his normal life, and he constantly stands her up without telling her why. Amber's rightfully annoyed, and they go through the classic teenage romance drama because of it. Still, the entire world seems to think she's always right, despite the fact that she barely shows any sympathy when she's told Mark was hit by a bus. All of this comes to a head when everybody's attacked on a trip to a college. Mark runs off to change into Invincible. Then he saves their lives, but to Amber, it just looks like he left them for dead. You can understand why she breaks up with him after that, not knowing the truth. The problem—
Hold up, isn't this now? If we wanted to turn this into toxic masculinity, you feel like you got to be the superhero, and you can't come clean about what you're really doing because you feel like you got to protect this image of. People could turn that into that, but they don't, bro. They don't. They just enjoy the freaking show. All right? Oh, man.
It comes later when they reveal that she'd known he was a superhero for weeks. She still blamed him for not going out on dates with her, even when she knows that Mark is risking his life to save other people. Then after the finale, she just walks back into Mark's arms, like he was in the wrong the entire time. It's like they added a tiny bit of the modern MCU into Invincible, and their treatment of her character is one of the only criticisms you can really level at the show. But what we've seen of season 2 so far gives us a reason to keep hoping. Clearly, the writers listened to the feedback they got and did some rethinking, as her character completely changes. She accepts accepts Mark's responsibilities, and they outweigh her own needs. She's supportive and kind.
That's not true. She was mad because bro lied to her and treated her like she was dumb. It wasn't just he wasn't taking her on dates. Looks like I gotta watch Invincible, bro. I just don't like you. Listen, I'm about to tell you how you can tell what somebody's actual gripe is. You remember in the beginning of this video when they said Marvel dropped flop after flop after flop, but they only showed the Marvels 3 times? They showed the Marvels, then they said the flop after flop line, showed the Marvels again, something else happened and showed the Marvels again, and then showed a freaking DC film. We see what the problem is. We see.
Complete reversal of her antics in season 1. It might have been a little more satisfying to see Mark actually confront her and stand up for himself, but it's not a huge issue. And it shows that the writers and the showrunners are willing to listen to the fans and the audience. They know that they messed up her character before, and there are scenes that seem like this.
How is that messed up though? Or the character just didn't do what you envisioned they should have did?
Specifically meant to fix those issues. It's completely the opposite of what the MCU has been doing. Time and time again, they've been making the same.
Look, time and time again, Marvel. It was one movie. They ain't bring up Ant-Man, Quantumanium. They ain't bring up, they showed the Eternals, but they ain't really dive too deep into it. But they keep showing one Marvel movie, chat. They're showing one Marvel movie and saying, look at what the MCU is doing. Look at them. Look, there's no substance. Oh, look, they did an all-girl scene. Oh, my God. Then they made the Marvels. Mind you, when Captain America, Thor, and Iron... Matter of fact, when Captain America picked up the hammer, everybody went crazy. The man finally showed his worth to the... You can say anything, bro. You can say anything.
Same sorts of inconsistent, poorly written movies, appealing to an audience that just doesn't exist outside of the minds of executives. There are some forces outside of their control working against them, of course. Invincible's production timeline is much shorter than your average $300 million Marvel production. There's years in between the script getting written and the final film actually coming out. They might know now that diversity fodder and pandering films aren't really working anymore, but it won't change the films they've pretty much made already. Even with this incredibly generous view of it all though, they're still obviously forcing something that anyone should know doesn't work. The 2016 Ghostbusters remake should have been all the information they need to know that gender swapping the characters, throwing in some girl power scenes, and releasing the film isn't enough to make people like it.
Gender swapping? You know there's movies that bust. Why didn't he use Thor: The Dark World? That movie was trash. But nobody is talking about like this is where Marvel went. Yo, people, they hate women, bro. This is crazy.
Ghostbusters 2016.
Holla trying to impress her by being a feminist. I'm not a feminist, but I promise people would get more booty, coochie, boobies if they stop like acting like this, bro. I promise you will. You know what I'm saying? People spend $75,000 on OnlyFans subscriptions, and then, all right, whatever.
Was quite literally the perfect storm of everything that people hate about modern Hollywood.
It looks embarrassing when you compare.
Yeah, it was a trash movie. It wasn't trash because it was women. It was trash because it was trash. If you would have put the same exact movie with all men in it, the movie still would have been trash.
To the original that was made 30 years ago, and that still holds up. The effects in that movie are still amazing after all this time.
You see, the effects. The effects have nothing to do with there being a woman cast. What does that have to do with it?
The fact that they're still doing it nearly a decade later shows how out of touch the MCU, Disney, and their executives truly are. Invincible shows us how to write characters properly, not based on glorifying whatever checkbox their identity fits into, but actually treating them like a real person. A perfect example is
Omni-Man is an alien. He's not a human man. What is wrong with these people, bro? I'm sorry. He's probably good. Look, I ain't gonna be in this video might get copyright strike. I ain't gonna cap.
Debbie, Omni-Man's wife.
Kind of scared to upload it. Don't copyright strike me. I'm just trying to help, bro. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help.
and Mark's son. One difference between her and cookie cutter strong female protagonist archetype is that she actually has agency. She's her own person with her own nuanced personality. When her doubts are raised, she investigates Nolan herself. She gets the truth herself, and then she's left to deal with the consequences. She's strong, but not in some better than every other single character way, but in a down-to-earth realistic way. Nolan might be one of the strongest people on the planet physically, but Debbie is clearly stronger emotionally. In the end, it overcomes Nolan's.
So the only archetypes that fit you is if the... Yo, son, what are we doing? What are we doing, bro?
Physical strength. Her impact on Mark is what saves the world. And when Nolan is trying to convince Mark to help him, it's his comment that she's like a pet that sets him over the edge and convinces him to resist. It's a perfect example of...
So, okay, listen to... Why don't you have a problem with this?
Comment that she's like a pet that sets him over saves the world. And when Nolan is trying to convince Mark to help him, it's his comment that she's like a pet that...
Why is there anything wrong with calling her a pet? Oh, this is the man. The movie shows how men think the woman of their life, although they may be stronger emotionally, them physically means they can dominate them and rule over them as if they're pets. Nobody's gonna say that. Nobody's saying that. Just enjoy the freaking movie or show. You know what I'm saying?
Sets him over the edge.
She-Hulk had a get. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't complaining. Plot. See, I didn't watch She-Hulk. You know what I'm saying?
And convinces him to resist. It's a perfect example of the kind of...
WandaVision. Why nobody talk about WandaVision? WandaVision was a female lead. She was OP. Wanda was in there cooking. Wanda probably the strongest person on the Avengers. But nobody's talking about her show. Nobody was multiverse of madness, this multi-women being... Nobody did that. Yeah, the Marvels might be but it's not because they're women on the screen. Because ain't nobody say nothing about Wanda, bruh.
Writing that just isn't present in the MCU anymore. It lays the foundations for dark and dramatic moments that aren't constantly being undercut by jokes. In fact, Invincible even cuts away from the action towards the end of the finale to add more character development, to set the stage for the internal conflict that's driving them. It's like the opposite of what the MCU would have done in a similar scene. The show even subtly makes fun of the way every superhero becomes a one-line comedian. In the MCU, these moments used to be a refreshing break, but now they're so common that they make it seem like nobody's taking anything seriously.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
How is the audience meant to get invested in the big CGI fights when the characters aren't? Inserting that into Invincible would just be ridiculous. Like if Omni-Man made a pun about missing his stop during the train scene. Invincible proves that superhero fatigue isn't a real thing. In fact, people are as excited as ever to see more of these stories, but only if they're done right. The real issue with the MCU, and the reason everybody got tired of it, runs much deeper. Its success was its downfall. People got invested into the main characters, the main plotline, and the overarching arc with Thanos.
Well, okay, listen here, buddy. People got invested, but it took 10 years to do. So if they're gonna build another thing that people are invested in, you can't expect the storyline that they did that took 10 years. You can't expect how you felt in year 6 and 7 for you to feel like that in step 1 and 2. People did not care about this big storyline back when Iron Man 1 dropped. They didn't. This is a new set of characters, and they're building to a 10-year storyline again. What? Yo, son, I'm about to lose my mind. I'm about to.
It's like they're just trying to figure out where to go next. Iron Man, the hero who started it all, is gone now, as well as Captain America.
Because those were the two you started with. But the next generation is going to have a different set of characters that they grow with to beat the big bad in the end.
Thor stayed on for a while, but he couldn't even carry his own Phase 4 film. The next big villain hasn't really come into it at all. They didn't need another Thanos, of course, but a reason to care about the movie outside of whatever contrived stakes they set up is key. The MCU is just confused now. It lost all the momentum that made Infinity War and Endgame such massive events. The motivation got drowned in...
Yo, I swear, they teach you this in school. Maybe everybody else didn't get the steps of a story. Image. Let me see. Okay, look at this. Listen, I thought they taught everybody this in school. All right, exposition, the explanation of the story, right? This is what you have. This was Thor 1, X-Men 1, Iron Man 1, Captain America, what else was there? All of that. You know, Rising Action, the first Avengers movie, Black Panther, Civil War, blah, blah, blah. Then you have Infinity War and Endgame, right? So now you're at this place, Infinity War, Endgame. The falling action, you have Eternals, the Marvels, Shang-Chi, Multiverse of Madness, Loki. You have all of these things. It's the falling action to resolve this storyline. But the resolution of this storyline is the exposition of the next storyline. And you have to go through the same process again. Clearly, people wasn't paying attention in language arts. I thought this is what we learned. Let's get back to the video.
See mediocre spin-off shows, side characters, and simply poor movies. On top of all of that, each Marvel film used to stand on its own. Their connections with the rest of the MCU were subtle, sometimes completely relegated to the end credits scene. Now, watching a modern Marvel film feels like starting a movie 2/3 of the way through. They're so reliant on the other films for their reason to exist, whilst also not contributing to any actual overarching plot in a clear, noticeable way.
So how do you talk about this big, grand, caring about, and then turn around in the next sentence and say, oh, well, it seems like they all reference each other? Like, what are we talking about? What is the point?
The comics and the actual source material have ceased to matter entirely, replaced by whatever boardroom of executives decide will play well to focus groups. Invincible doesn't have this problem. The story is all set out, and it's gonna...
This is crazy. You're comparing something that was built in 10 years to something that got one season and half of a second season. Now, if you say you like Invincibles, just say that. That's all you got to say.
Gonna get crazy. Every scene and episode matters because it moves that story forward. The stakes in the universe seem real because the characters seem real. It's even gonna do the multiverse angle better. Starting with Endgame, the multiverse becomes the ultimate cop-out for the writers. Instead of actually mattering for the plot, it's just a one-stop shop to fix the plot of a movie. Or it's just used to push in cameos from other superheroes that wouldn't fit otherwise. Cameos that don't just mean nothing, but actually undermine the...
This was literally the good universe versus the bad universe. How is this?
Characters themselves. For anyone who liked the Fantastic Four and Mr. Fantastic himself, his cameo in the Doctor Strange movie must have been so disappointing. He teleports in, gets called the smartest man alive, reveals his friend's powers, causing him to instantly die. Then he just dies as well. Scenes like that one that just destroy parts of the Marvel universe a dime a dozen now. Invincible doesn't have this problem though. It doesn't have to rely on cheap nostalgia and recognition to give weight to its stories. It obviously borrows tropes and archetypes from superhero comics.
If you're borrowing tropes from everything else, you do need nostalgia to do it. He started his video out saying, this is Batman, this is Superman, this is the Flash, you're still borrowing nostalgia from old characters. What are we talking about?
Comics, but it builds on them and turns them into something new. The first episode is a great example, as we see the status quo of the Justice League protecting the Earth from cartoonish villains. A world where the heroes and the villains fight. The heroes win and then everything just goes back to normal. Then that all gets thrown on its head in one final scene. All the work the episode did in setting up those characters gets violently destroyed. We see the consequences every time something happens. The characters go through loss, regret, and every other emotion as the world changes around them. Even Omni-Man isn't impervious to it. When Mark gets his powers, he's distressed because it means he's run out of time. The world and the family he built are over now. He's caught between Viltrum and Earth. If Mark hadn't gotten his powers, he could have waited until his family had passed away, then gotten on with his mission. Instead, he's got to tear them apart. This focus on consequences and keeping one foot in reality is what sets Invincible apart and makes every fight and conversation matter so much more. Which other superhero show has so many scenes that take place in hospitals? Any characters could die, nobody is safe. Even Mark, despite being the main character and actually being called invincible, is a punching bag more often than not. But each fight makes him learn another lesson and pushes his character forward towards a concrete conclusion.
But if he ends up safe at the end of each episode, or at the end of each arc, isn't that the same thing that you said about Marvel? Because everybody can die except for him.
It isn't like the MCU, which is based around a sitcom style of storytelling. There's no constant cycle where every episode and plotline ends with everything going back to the way things were. Just as superhero comics progress towards this way of structuring a story, comic book films and shows are catching up as well. Superheroes aren't a dying breed like some people would think after seeing the MCU's collapse. Instead, the genre is changing and evolving into something better, with shows like Invincible collapse. Instead, the genre is changing and
I know he didn't let this slide. I know he didn't. I don't even know what this character is or what is this? What is this? Huh? Is this not political narrative pushing, buddy? Huh? Bro, I swear.
Evolving into something better, with shows like Invincible and The Boys leading the way. Meanwhile, the MCU is shooting itself in the foot. It was expected that there would be some kind of drop-off after Endgame, without all the famous...
Invincible hasn't been out long enough or has enough seasons to compare it to Marvel and see its falling action exactly. Invincible been out for like a year. Now, if he said like The Boys, which I haven't seen The Boys either, I need to watch that. But why wouldn't he use The Boys as the thing?
Characters that built it all, but even then the performance has been truly dismal. Every single aspect of the films has gotten worse. Special effects are even down the drain, just look at Thor: Love and Thunder. Despite working their VFX artists down to the bone for years on end, they've barely got anything to show for it. Sometimes artists were given just weeks to create a complete scene, a crazy task considering the whole movie is pretty much filmed on a green screen anyway. In the 2,700 shots that make up Infinity War, only 80 didn't have VFX in them. Like most of the problems with Marvel, it's a result of corporate greed on the part of Disney. Despite raking in untold billions from these movies, they're still understaffing artists and forcing them into permanent crunch time. As their films perform worse and worse, there will be even less money in the budget and the effects will only get worse. Then there's all the long shows that barely anyone watches. WandaVision, for example, had more VFX shots and work than the entirety of Endgame. Marvel keeps throwing more stuff at the wall, hoping it will stick, but every time they do, they just...
WandaVision was a masterpiece. Why doesn't he talk about how WandaVision and the superhuman woman? Come on.
Just make the problem worse. Saving money by hiring amateur writers and directors isn't helping either. It's a problem that extends across the whole production, and it's been going on for years now, and it's pretty hopeless that we'll see a transition back towards quality anytime soon. The Boys and Invincible dodge this problem in different ways. The Boys places tons of emphasis on physical effects. Invincible is animated, so it's a completely different story. But they don't get bogged down in multiple movies, TV shows, and properties all coming out at once. When spin-offs do come out like Gen V or the Atom Eve episode, they only build on previous success rather than taking away from it. And by focusing on quality over quantity, Invincible is showing people what this genre can really be. It's giving people a breath of fresh air and it's destroying the MCU.
Yeah, you know, L plus ratio. All right, that's all we got to say for this. Aren't you not allowed to say that on Twitch? I don't know. This was a yeah, it was a reach. All right, Mr. Fantastic style reach. Look, listen, y'all gotta stop hating women. Clearly, this was driven by hate for women. He mentioned one Marvel movie as the downfall. This is the downfall.
So when the metal hit his mug, he just sunk in place. 100K Holla, chillin' Bahamas. Come home to your crib and throw in your mama.